Welcome to the smartest people in the room. We are glad you are here, and just by showing up, you're already demonstrating your very own smarts. Today, I am pleased to present an old friend and a new one. The old one is hosting his ninth episode, which is a record, and the new one is a guest that I have coveted for this platform for quite some time. I promise you will leave here smarter and more enlightened than you arrived. Before we get started, please let me take care of some business. First, to the audience, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat window. The reason we do these webinars is twofold. First, we want to showcase really smart people and the amazing work they do day to day in the music industry. But the second reason is a bit more nuanced. Many of you know that I am a music industry headhunter. I run the music practice at Turnkey ZRG, and I place music executives in roles throughout the industry. So by definition and function, I help people connect with companies. In this series, my goal is to help you make more connections, and I invite you to take full advantage of that opportunity. Specifically, I invite you to engage with the speakers and the other attendees in the chat of the Zoom. Please introduce yourselves, share your LinkedIn profile, say hello to your friends, and make some new ones. And also ask questions of our speakers. And also, this is very important. Please make sure your chat is set to address everyone, not just the host and speakers. By the way, that goes for you two speakers as well. I want to thank our program sponsors, for without their support, we could not continue to do this for free. Special thanks to MedJet, Turnkey ZRG, the Tennessee Entertainment Commission, Tennessee Brew Works, and my favorite industry podcast, Unlimited Supply. A quick note about MedJet, the top-rated air medical transport and security response membership program for global travelers. I'm a member, and I will say I got it mostly to be able to get home if I land in a hospital somewhere. But it comes with security response too. And wow, between the cartel violence in Puerto Vallarta recently, and a place everyone thought was the safest tourist destination in Mexico, and what's happening in the Middle East right now, you just never know what can happen when you're traveling. So check out medjet.com. Let's get down to business, folks. In today's host seat, we welcome back for the ninth time my pal, David Hazan. And if this says anything about how much I respect him and his work, no one else has hosted more than 6. David is a veteran music and entertainment executive with over 30 years of experience operating at the intersection of music, media, events, and technology. He's built a career driving revenue growth and brand development for a wide range of clients, from emerging tech startups to established global media companies. His background in music marketing includes senior leadership roles with Madame, The Orchard, Universal Music Group, Warner Music Group, VH1 MTV Networks, Putumayo, and Wind Up Records. David has worked with an extensive roster of clients, including Gig Logic, AFA, Trusted Advisor, Spin Magazine, Tapalti, Sound Exchange, Audio Shake, Bandoozle, Found.ee, Gig Salad, CID Entertainment, AEG, so many others. I'm not even going to read them all. Early in his career, he led leadership roles at experiential marketing agencies, US Concept / MKTG, and EMCI Rockbill, where he ran their London office in the 90s. A respected voice in the industry, David has curated and moderated more than 50 panels, both in person and virtual, at leading conferences such as NEVA, Music Biz, Walifornia, Music Tectonics, Cool Out, and many other conferences, too many to name here. And joining David is Sam Hendel. Sam is managing partner of Chord Music Partners and Dundee Partners. He founded Chord in 2021 as a joint venture with UMG, serving as UMG's global catalog acquisition vehicle. Today, Chord is one of the largest independent music rights platforms in the world, with a portfolio of over 65,000 works spanning legacy and contemporary artists, including The Weeknd, Fleetwood Mac, David Guetta, One Republic, John Legend, Diplo, ZZ Top, and Morgan Wallen, among others. The platform combines institutional capital with UMG's unmatched global infrastructure, giving it unique access to premium deal flow, world-class active management, and long-term alignment with artists and rights holders. In addition to Chord, Sam and his family have invested in media and cultural enterprises such as Knitting Factory Entertainment, Partisan Records, and Kino Lorber. He's also an active investor and board member at the intersection of media and technology with interests in Royalty, Colors Studios, OK Player, Fandium, and the venture fund 528HZ. Sam hosts Playlist Junkie, a weekly DJ show every Sunday night on 99.1 PLR in Connecticut and 94.3 on The Shark on Long Island. You'll hear in his voice in a minute why he gets to host those live on air shows. Sam's career began in investment management, specializing in merger arbitrage and event-driven strategies, and he's also co-founder of Data the world's leading real-time AI company for event and risk detection. It is my pleasure to welcome these two rock stars to our platform today. Please take it away, gentlemen.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you,
Hey,
Tom.
Sam.
What's up, David? How are you?
Real good, real good. Sam, most of us got into this business first and foremost because we got bit. And it's always interesting to hear what it was that made you realize music was going to be a big thing in your life. Where were you? What happened? And what were you listening to?
Well, it's funny. I always joke, I'm sort of in the music business accidentally. I never thought I would be doing what I'm doing right now. I grew up in a household, very musical household. My dad, didn't really play an instrument, but became, got super into music when he was in high school. And I grew up going to Bob Dylan shows, Richie Havens, a lot of that kind of folk music, kind of New York City generated folk music, and then a lot of jazz, etc. And he would take me into the city to go see an independent foreign film. And my mom was always into theater, so she had gotten degrees, undergrad, and got an MFA in theater from Northwestern. Worked in production in the city, and then had my sister and became a housewife for the next 25 years. But we were always going to see shows, and just listening to a lot of music and records in the house, etc. And but it never occurred to me that it could be a career option, frankly. I went right to work in finance right after college. Had a bunch of hobbies. I made playlists for years. That's kind of the genesis of my radio show that I've been doing for about 7 years was I would do playlists for friends, for, ex-girlfriends, all that type of stuff. But I went to work in finance, had a really, good career there. Had a break during the financial crisis and started a tech company called Data that Tom mentioned, that's done quite well, and was kind of doing my finance thing when kind of an opportunity almost fell on my lap a little bit. Um, when during the pandemic, Willard Aldrich reached out to me, and we had gotten to be friendly around a musical that my family had done called Fella. And that's probably a longer conversation, David, but I can kind of walk through some of the stuff that we've done as a family that kind of set the stage a little bit for me getting involved day to day in the music business, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I didn't realize there were a connection between Fella and Cobalt, which is the roots of Chord
Yeah.
Music Partners, which is actually the next question. But please continue. You're connecting the
Yeah,
dots
sure,
over
sure.
there.
So I guess a little over 25 years ago, my dad, who also has a finance background, he ended up bailing out the knitting factory. They were likely to go under, and one of his good friends from college, a guy named Gary Lucas. Gary's a well-known guitarist. He was Captain Beefheart's manager and was Jeff Buckley's guitarist. He wrote Grace and Mojo Pen. He was my dad's good friend from college, and he played at the Knitting Factory a lot in the city. And so he reached out to my dad when they were having some struggles. And so year 2000, we ended up as a family taking control of the Knitting Factory. We had a couple of entrepreneurs, about 5 or 6 years later, who wanted to sign a band called Deer Tick. And they were looking for some capital to do it, and we backed them. And they started a label called Partisan Records. And we've been their partner now for close to 20 years, and they built an incredible independent label. And I think one of the things that we do pretty well with these things is stay out of the way, and let the entrepreneurs do their thing. Same, that's what we did the Knitting Factory with Partisan. We backed one of the Partisan co-founders to start a business called the Talk House a bunch of years ago, which is kind of a podcasting and storytelling platform around music and IP. And And my mom has been producing Broadway theater for many years. So after I was in college and my younger brother was graduating high school, and she started doing theater, and she's built an amazing career. I think she's won 12 or 13 Tony Awards now. And the Fella project really was my dad's passion project. He bought a Fella CD on Amazon, fell in love with the music and Fella's life story, sort of standing up and using music as a weapon for social change and political change. And we ended up doing a Broadway musical as a family about Fella's life. And that's when I ended up meeting Willard, who's an incredible entrepreneur, and really pioneered a lot of, I'd say the transparency and independence in publishing. And Willard reached out during the pandemic and was looking to, find a partner and sell a big asset. And that's kind of the genesis of Cord.
And you took Chord and then had Universal Music Group acquire a minority stake in that. And Chord is now the largest pure play music catalog in the industry, I believe.
Yeah, and that was it was funny. It was a couple years after we started the platform. So the original platform, Cobalt had two assets. There was their operating business, and then off balance sheet, they had raised money from a couple of European pension funds to go out and buy music. And I think in retrospect, it might have made sense to do it on balance sheet, but their shareholders were kind of more tech-driven shareholders. And buying catalog is much more capital intensive. And they're like, hey, like we don't really want to put that capital to work ourselves, but if you guys raise capital, that's totally fine. So they set up Cobalt Capital. It was apart from Cobalt, it's a different shareholder base, different considerations, and it is frankly a different investment, a different type of investment. But those investors, both the investors in the operating business and in the catalog, around the same time, early in the pandemic, were looking to have an exit. And so we first went very deep on the catalog side, and I was at a hedge fund. I was running a hedge fund, specializing in that risk arb and event driven, and I ended up quitting my job because I sort of thought it was an amazing opportunity and had the passion for it. And we ended up putting the deal together to buy KMR2, which was that amazing catalog that Willard and Johan Ahlstrom had put together, and formed Chord. But that initial partnership was with KKR, it was with a private equity company. And then we helped Francisco Partners then acquire Cobalt. We had become very friendly with now Matt spun off into his own business, but a guy named Matt Spetzler, who was one of the senior partners in the European group of Francisco Partners. They were looking to acquire a music asset, and they had a lot of expertise in the space. We really rode shotgun with them when they acquired Cobalt and co-invested alongside of them, but they were two different transactions. We did the deal with KKR initially, and then 2 years later, Universal Music was looking for a partner and a vehicle to be their long-term, really a long-term vehicle, as an off-balance sheet group to acquire assets alongside of them. And that's when Universal, that was early 2024, that Universal came in and made a large minority investment into Cord, and then we took out and acquired KKR stake as well.
I see. And since that happened, one of the biggest, if not the biggest acquisition since then was when you acquired partial shares in Morgan Wallen's catalog. And that must have been a very competitive situation, and you guys were new players. Can you talk a little bit about the process there and what you needed to do to convince Big Loud to sell to you and not other parties pursuing the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, I'll, I would say, the transaction we put together with Big Loud, and Seth and Craig and Joey are incredible people, and have built an amazing business. We really, it's a partnership. They already had a deep relationship with the Universal Music Group, who helps distribute a lot of that catalog, and in particular, Morgan is really a partnership with the team at Republic Collective. But it wasn't like an auction process. It was a relationship, and we really wanted to set something up that created a lot of alignment and also created a lot of alignment with the artist, with Morgan himself. So it's a joint venture. We own part of the catalog. They continue to own part of the catalog and manage And the repertoire, continues to sit at Big Loud, and then we distribute on the back end through the Virgin Music Group and Republic.
Is the alignment that you just spoke of based on shared vision of what should happen for the catalog? Is it about increased expertise to admin and collection? Like, what is the alignment based on?
Yeah, I would say it's based on growing the fan base, not just in the U.S. audience, but I think there's a lot more storytelling we can do on a global scale with Morgan's catalog, and he's really a unicorn from the type of fan base. When I was younger, the music that was sort of I would say, that the young people like me was listening to was hip hop. That was kind of the transgressive music of my generation. And obviously we had, I'm in my mid 40s, so we had alternative rock, was a huge revolution. But, country music, was the fastest growing genre in the Northeast today. It's really hitting that young audience. And there's amazing storytelling in it. And so I never really grew up listening to country music, just wasn't in my algorithm. And I've gotten to love, the melodic storytelling and some of the songwriters that Morgan has partnered with and that kind of flow through the Big Loud system are absolutely incredible. And he's one of the artists that, he's a country artist, but a lot of his things, they have a trap beat that there are other genres that are kind of mixed into it. And I think that's really resonated with an audience, particularly in the United States. But I think the partnership that we have, this great independent label, and then the backing of Universal Music Group, we want to continue to grow and get his music to a larger fan base around the world.
Yeah, rock music is doing whatever it's doing right now, but the need for basic guitar-driven songs is largely fallen to country artists, and a lot of people are just gravitating to that, especially internationally, like you said. You would use the word storytelling in your podcast with Alejandro, and does that just mean like taking advantage of global resources that you have access to with Universal to get the word out, or what does storytelling mean?
Yeah, it's a great question. To me, there's a lot of ways to do. I guess our general view is that when we buy a catalog, we want to be best in class from an investment perspective, investing in music, but also from the artist perspective. When you're selling your catalog, it's your life's work. For a living artist, and obviously in a state like the care and the ability to continue to build an audience. And I would say even an older act, or someone or an estate, the more that we can reconnect that music to existing fans, but also create new fans. And when we get a younger audience to listen to the music, and when a 15-year-old listens to Fleetwood Mac for the first time, it's a new song for them. And that's happened in a big way with that catalog, where some guy on TikTok had put out a video of himself chugging cranberry juice on a skateboard, singing "Dreams" by Fleetwood Mac. Fleetwood Mac's audience re-rated down by 20 years. Um, that's storytelling to me. How do we connect? How do we one, continue to build the fandom of the current audience, but then how do we connect it to the next generation? How are we finding and building new audiences and bringing them into the experience of loving an artist and having that personal connection? And I view, a lot of what we're doing is digital marketing. Frankly, TikTok is, a great platform for connecting to fans, especially the younger fans. But physical re-release. Should we be doing remixes of songs? Should we be using technology like AI that I think does have, some really compelling power to connect more deeply a fan and their audience, albeit, some of the noise and slop that's out in the marketplace. And then film and television. That's something that it's not every artist is going to have a biopic, but are there ways to find some stories that are really interesting to tell, and get them out into the world? And that I think that benefits catalog. So I think that storytelling goes across the landscape of trying to connect people more deeply to the music.
You had mentioned in your panel on Sunday that you were a fan of fan-based remixes. which was surprising. But it seems that there's a need for fans to be able to exert some degree of control of a customized version of it for themselves, and so that they can share it. And it's a big jump from artists wanting to control every aspect of their art. But I think that's something that's on the way. When you're considering acquisitions, how do you assess the long-term value of a catalog or a song? Because sometimes Chord buys individual songs. How do you project? How do you assess?
Yeah, no, it's really one is we're very data driven. And I think all the catalog acquisition, funds or vehicles out there, we are using data, we're using historical data, and then we're also, extrapolating what we think those audiences and what's that, streaming is I think the easiest one to model, but what is the audience, and how are they listening to the music over their lives? We effectively are looking at audience cohorts, modeling out listenership over someone's lifespan. And the beauty is that, when people listen and love music, they tend to listen to that music the rest of their lives. And music from the 1960s or 70s, there is an audience that it's not really a streaming native audience, though that's the fastest growing cohorts, the above 35s on adopting streaming. But those audiences eventually, they're going to decline at some point. And we're modeling that. We're thinking, okay, if I have 70-year-olds listening to music, well, they're going to come out of the picture at some point in time, hopefully not for a very long time, but I hopefully have younger people that are coming into the funnel, and I can model, what that's going to look like. And so we're very data intensive. And the math has to math, but at the end of the day, there's definitely some repertoire that is better than others, and that deserves a premium. And we have to kind of have that combination of art and science to come up with a price that we think is a fair price for that repertoire. And we never one thing we never underwrite to the active management that we think we can do. We want to make sure that we're kind of comparing across other potential buyers out there in the ecosystem. But once we buy something, we really want to be an amazing partner to those artists. Um, and the fact that we're partnered with a music company we think is quite distinct, and it gives us the ability to put our thumb on the scale to if that artist is releasing new music, well, we're going to work the catalog alongside of their teams and make sure that we're staying out of the way when they have a release cycle, but that we're priming the pump with doing some spend around the catalog to get the audience kind of ready and back ready for the new music to come out. So we really pride ourselves on being great partners there, and we're building some real infrastructure, not just at Universal Music Group, but also at our core team at Chord, to effectuate, really trying to be best in class from a catalog management perspective once we acquire an asset.
When you look at streaming data, which is available and abundant, I'm wondering if you also incorporate in your assessments ticket sales and live touring history
Yeah.
data, because that shows depth of fan engagement. I don't know how much
Yeah.
t-shirt and merch sales data might be available, but certainly live. And how do you put that alongside the streaming data?
Yeah, sure. So growth of, social followers, touring, you have to, touring has a natural cycle. So we know that kind of during and around a tour, well, really on a delay for publishing and kind of more in real time for recorded music, but you're going to have bumps in streaming, and bumps in engagement. So I'd almost rather buy an artist that's, touring, or an artist that we can, or artist or songwriter that we can take action on. So if I buy a catalog that's a very diverse pool of songwriter catalog, there isn't so much I can do to effectuate change. But if we're buying, one artist or a songwriter, we have more of an ability to actively work those catalogs. And that's something that we certainly consider. Um, it really goes across. Partisan Records has become a really amazing label. That's one of, and I think we'll probably talk about it a little later, but that's one of the businesses that we incubated and backed entrepreneurs in. But they go across genre. We have Fela Kuti, an Ezra Collective, and then we have Cigarettes After Sex, Geese, Cameron Winter, a band called Idols. It's a cross genre. What that team cares about when they sign a new artist is distinct artist voice. We try to bring that same discipline to Chord when we're acquiring a catalog. We're very focused on distinct artist voice and a deep connection to fans. And so we are looking at that data, not just the streaming data. We're looking at who are the cohorts that are listening to music, that listen to this music. Are they 13-year-olds in India and South Korea and Indonesia that are coming into the funnel? We'd much rather be engaging with those type of catalogs than catalogs that are a little more stagnant with an audience that isn't really growing over time.
Do you see, you were talking about the glut of music coming out. Do you see all of the music AI enabled that's on the way and in the process of arriving? Do you see that as diluting the value of classic catalogs in any significant way?
I think on the margin right now, there is a little bit of dilution happening. And I think it's an opportunity. I think AI is more of an opportunity than a risk for high quality catalog. Right now you don't really have control of, I would say that, there's a lot that's out in the wild. People are making AI tracks, in particular on, the big infringer Suno, and they're releasing it out into the wild. And you see that in, data from TuneCore and DistroKid and some of the, platforms. They're letting all of it come on. And I think, the industry has done a good job of labeling that. I think a lot of it is AI slop. Now, that being said, we think there are amazing ways for audience to engage with their favorite songs and use those songs to create new. But the technology, we're not there yet from a tracking and an attribution perspective for the industry to say, hey, yeah, sure, that's great. Let's just let it go out in the wild. But if someone is using our music to train on, if they're using the prompting around an artist's name, image, and likeness, around their voice, around their their music that they created to create something new, those artists and songwriters need to get compensated for it. And I think we're going to get there. But we're not, we're not there yet. But from my perspective, using AI as a storytelling mechanism to, I'll give an example. I think certain artists are leaning into AI. We have the Major Lazer catalog. We have the Masters, and we have Diplo's Publishing. He's very into AI. He's using Suno as a creative tool. And I think it is a great creative tool. But how do we create platforms for fans to engage with music they know and love, remix it, mess around with it, have fun with it, keep it in a closed garden? But if something really gets traction, I want to release those songs. But it has to be done within the context of attribution to those artists and the songwriters whose work is being used to create those new works, whether it's generative from scratch or whether it's a derivative of an existing work. I think that's super interesting, and we're spending a bunch of time on trying to find the right path that comports with some of the some of the tenets that Universal's put out, which is that artists shouldn't have their stuff automatically taken and trained on. They need to opt in. Let those artists opt in. If they opt in, let's create some economic models that work for the industry and work for the AI companies, and they're going to be truly benefiting fans to connect more deeply to their favorite songs.
Great. In that podcast, you said that the global music industry that's currently 35 billion now compared to 55 billion about 25 years ago, that right now it's undervalued. And you said you could see a path to the industry doubling within the next 8 or so years. I was wondering, two-part question, like, why do you think the music industry is undervalued now? And what specific opportunities do you see coming up that might drive that kind of increase?
Yeah, it's a great question. The industry obviously troughed in 2014. It took a long time for us to, realize that there was this transition from a physical product into a digital product. And I think the industry was generally caught off guard a little bit. I think we're doing much better now, with this new threat and opportunity of AI. But it took a long time for that change to happen, and it was extremely painful. So what I quoted there is that, inflation adjusted, the music industry had 55 billion of global revenue. This is just recording and publishing, not live. 55 billion of global revenue in 1999 at the height of the CD era, and last year it had a little over 40. So most industries have grown significantly from 27 years ago. The music industry hasn't. And so the cheapest form of entertainment is music. It costs 15 cents an hour for someone to listen to music, versus, live experience is like $35 an hour. And film and TV is a multiple of the cost of listening to music. So it's one where we think globally the music industry is under earning. And digitization is actually our friend now. We should be finding more of those opportunities to know who is our audience, when are they listening, how often are they listening, and we're still bringing people into the funnel of streaming. So we get people into the funnel, we then convert them from an ad model into a paid model, and we're now at a point in developing markets, sorry, in developed markets where streaming growth is slowing. That being said, though streaming growth is slowing, we have a couple of opportunities. One is the industry hasn't done a great job of, some of the password sharing that Netflix has done and been able to grow, our ARPU and grow subscribers significantly. But our ARPU is super under monetized. The industry didn't change price from 2008 when Spotify started until 2023. We've now raised price, three times, and there's been very, very little churn. So I think we're at the point where the product is still for 2 cups of coffee per month. You can have all the music in the world you want to listen to whenever you want to listen to it. That's a really great consumer deal. We have to keep it a good consumer deal, but I think we have room to grow the size of the pie pretty significantly as we continue to onboard people all over the world into the streaming ecosystem.
Do you think that fan engagement and super fans are under-monetized, as a lot of people say, and there's opportunities there too? If everyone's going to pay a little bit, the 10% that's prepared to do more. And I guess Sync is a big growth vehicle for you as you acquire catalogs, and that's a good way to monetize them as well. What do you think is really driving the current boom in catalog acquisition? Is it what you were saying about the predictability of streaming revenues and making it easy to transact as financial institutions must, or is it about the upside and how you can get amazing returns, or is it both equally?
Yeah, I think the first point is that 30 years ago, this was a hardware industry. You go to a store, we buy a physical product. I still like the physical product personally, but mo most of the consumption is digital today. And so the industry went from this one-time sale model, and even iTunes was a one-time sale. You bought it once and that was it. And now we have recurring revenue that I can measure in real time coming from streaming, and it's consistent, it's modelable, and the industry is, and it's higher margin. So that kind of leads to the ability to model these things better for financial players. And historically, the music industry, the majors have been the kind of financial engine for artists and songwriters. And now you have a lot of new entrants. You have private equity firms, you have insurance companies, you have pension funds. And so that shift to streaming and that more recurring predictive revenue allows for a better finance aspect. And the beauty with music is it's one of the only assets in the world that is extremely long-lived and generally uncorrelated to the market. No matter what's happening in the world, one of the last things we're going to turn off is the soul that we get from listening to music. It's such a cheap product that it's generally uncorrelated to whatever is happening with tariffs or sadly the war right now or other things. That's not really affecting, it's a consumer staple. Um,
Recession proof.
yeah, recession, at least recession resistant. And we've seen what's happened with streaming video, which is a great corollary for us. Streaming video, all those companies, Netflix and Hulu and HBO and Disney, they all compete with each other for content. They've been able to more than double their price over the past 7 years. The music industry, it's the same content that's on Spotify and Apple and Amazon and YouTube. And I view it more as a necessary utility. We should be able to take price, not going crazy with it, but we should be able to continue, keep taking price, and grow the size of the pie. And I think the good thing is now that the music companies are public, I think we should be working as an industry to grow the size of the pie, That's much more important than fighting and sniping over market share, albeit that's quite important. But growing the size of the pie, doing right by our artists and songwriters, I think the industry is in a better place than it has been for, for a long time, with the ability to really do that, hopefully at scale.
You're talking about Netflix and Amazon and how to get all the film and TV content. You're looking at multiple subscriptions, as with music, everything is the same. You get everything from each location. Do you see an opportunity where an artist, whether it's Neil Young or Taylor Swift, becomes impatient with the lack of DSP's willingness to raise prices and just pull all their music and have it be available only to their fans direct?
I think it's been tried before. I think it's pretty challenging in this world where, I mean, I hate putting a new app on my phone, right? Like it's hard to do that. Do I think that we should find ways to that kind of have that super fan type experience? I think we really haven't gotten the right formula to, have an artist have that deep relationship with the fan in a digital format, um, that we should. You have it a little bit in Southeast Asia. I think Tencent's done a very nice job of that. But it hasn't really succeeded here. I think part of it is that there's just a lot of free content out there. And so getting the fans' attention to go into those small communities, I think is pretty challenging. And I'm waiting for and hoping that there's a great idea that comes along that can kind of break that a little bit. But that being said, I think there is a benefit in, in having our music widely distributed, and being out there. It really hasn't worked to pull it off platform, because there are too many great artists out there. But I think artists in the music industry probably hasn't used the artist as well as we should, to go and make the case that we're all being underpaid.
Yeah.
And that's in partnership, I would say, with the streaming services. Like they shouldn't be they're not our enemy here. They benefit from higher price. We benefit from higher price. We don't want to screw the consumer, but I think artists are still, we're still at the point where we're under earning as a global industry.
Yeah, everyone would agree with that. What are some of the creative ways that you've seen any acquirer of a catalog put some kind of experience or attraction together that really added value to the catalog? So like what Pop House did with the ABBA hologram show in London, for example. Anything that you took note of and said that's awesome and different?
I took my family to go see it. We were in the UK, about a year and a half ago. It was spectacular. And I think ABBA's music lends very well to that. It lends well to having a broad audience come. And I think from our perspective, do I want to find, different ways to engage those audience? Yes, I do. I don't think it works for every artist. I don't think there's a cookie cutter saying, "Hey, here's the path. Here's what we're going to do for every artist." I think each one's different. But I think there are great lessons from what they did with ABBA, and it was super successful. It was a great show. It's the right artist and the right fit for that artist. Some artists deserve biopics. Some should have documentaries. Sometimes there's one story, and it's not just a biopic that should go over someone's entire career, but are there great stories out there that we can tell, around a specific period of time, that can engage audiences? I would say from a chord perspective, we're not trying to take all the money we're earning from catalog and spend that on risky projects. That's not what we're intended to do. But we are actively looking for partners to take some of those stories that we have in our catalog with our songs and with our artists and get the right financing around them, whether that's in a film, whether that's in a experiential show, et cetera. We think there are a lot of opportunities. I think there are a lot of other mediums that are used out there. Video games is an area that I'm particularly, into and passionate about. This weekend at VersoFest, I interviewed Adria Petty, who's a dear friend, about her work, and taking over her father's legacy. But they had a track, "Love Is a Long Road," that was sort of it was the free fallen B-side, not streaming very often. They put it in a trailer for Grand Theft Auto 6, and the song is now the fifth most streamed, the fifth most, it's on the Spotify top 10, the fifth most actively daily streamed song because of that trailer. That's a great way to connect people to the music, and that connects people to a younger audience. We're always looking for ways to do that when we buy a catalog.
I want to jump to what you were saying about your other companies, Partisan Records and Knitting Factory, and you have the podcast company with Talkhouse and the film with Kino Lorber. You said you let the executives run their own companies, but I was wondering if you did anything to try and connect them with each other, the way that Time Warner and Viacom used to talk about synergy. Sometimes it was more successful than others, but do you have your version of that?
I mean, we do actually have regular dialogue with the CEOs that we backed and sponsored, and sometimes we're a control shareholder, sometimes we're a minority shareholder, sometimes we're on the board, sometimes we're just cheerleading on the sidelines. But we're always looking for ways to connect those companies together. Um, trying to think of Partisan works really closely with the Talkhouse, and there's obviously a cross collaboration there. One of the founders of Partisan spun off and started the Talkhouse. Color Studio is a company that we're really excited about. Kind of made an investment in that business a couple of years ago. And Jonas Weber, who leads that company, it's one of the best ways to storytell for a young emerging artist. And David, I'm not sure we chatted about Colors, but Colors every week they put out two new tracks. It's a very highly stylized video. A microphone drops from the ceiling. There's a monochromatic color background in the background, and the artist does a performance. And so Colors is effectively a record label, but they are a discovery platform and a curatorial platform for new artist work. So 8 years ago, they kind of discovered Billie Eilish. She kind of had her break on the platform. Shabuzi had his break on the platform. We love that, and we've kind of integrated the teams that not integrated together from a business perspective, but we've looked for synergies across those businesses. Royalty is a company that I spent a lot of time on, and I'm super excited to back Mike. But not only do we think that music should be owned not just by a bunch of record companies and private equity firms, should it be owned by the public at whole? We're still working hard on seeing if we can take some of our music at Chord and let fans own shares of a song. We think that's really compelling. And the regulatory is challenging to do that at scale, but it's going in the right direction in terms of tokenization and having ability to connect people there. What we're also doing at Royalty is we're looking to build tools to simplify the accounting and royalty collection, an ability to have visibility onto what an artist and what a catalog is collecting. That's a really hard problem. I think the music industry is 10 to 15 years behind where we should be from a data perspective. And we're looking to solve some of those problems for business managers and artists and songwriters right now there. So we're always looking for ways to connect, but my job isn't to get in the way of the CEO or the entrepreneur. We want to provide value, provide connectivity, and let them make the decisions. Like we're much better off. I always joke, try to find people smarter than me to do right by those businesses and have agency to go and succeed or fail. And we're here to back them in success, in failure, and try to get to the right path.
Great. I want to go back to color, which we had not talked about. I had read about them, and I meant to ask, what's the business model? Is it subscription? Is it ad driven? What's the business model for color?
Yeah, it's really they're kind of two businesses. Colors is a record label. So when they put out one of these tracks, they're either doing a joint venture with one of the majors, or for an independent artist, they own the master, and it's a 50-50 deal with the independent artist. They're releasing it on Spotify and on Apple and on YouTube, and they earn. So they're a record label at the same time. They also partner with brands. And so we just did a really cool one with the Brazilian artist Anita. She wrote a song called Pinterest. And Pinterest partnered with Colors to do a campaign around Anita's Pinterest songs. And she's released two versions of the song, one in Portuguese, one in Spanish. And and Pinterest, it's been a promotional tool for them. We're doing a lot of in person. So Colors has a platform called Tones, which is in person connections. And we have that backed by some of our brands. And it's a live event. It's a really cool business. So it's half record label and half artist brand.
Very cool. Um, let's talk about music in our last few minutes here. How did Led Zeppelin become your favorite band? Was there a Big Bang moment, a Jimmy Page solo, an experience that just gave you a rush like nothing else?
Yeah, so my senior year of high school, my dad got me the 4 CD box set. And I had a really crappy 1995 tan Dodge Intrepid that I drove around with a CD case. And I basically listened my entire senior year of high school to Zeppelin. Fell in love with the band, and then I got very lucky, and I ended up going to the show at the O2 Arena in 2007, the Ahmet Ertegun tribute show, and it was amazing. But sadly, it will be. I don't think I can ever top that in my life. It will be the best concert I've ever seen. There's nothing that can top it. Seeing my favorite band playing the only show they've ever they've done semi together since Bonham died was pretty special. So yeah, they're my favorite band, but like I always joke, if you look at my Spotify, you can sort of see either what we've bought or what we're buying because I'm always listening and really feel the need to know, what's in our repertoire. So last year, my number one song was my 5-year-old's nappy song that he listens to twice before he goes to bed, which is not in our catalog. But everything else was either in our catalog or about to be in our catalog, which is, fun. The more we listen, the more we get paid.
Not to go all 60 minutes on you or anything, but I went to Playlist Junkie. 516 playlists? Like
Yeah.
that's that's a lot of playlists. Like is that part of what you do for your radio shows, which I wanted to talk about? Because you do two weekly
Yeah.
shows, right? One in Long Island, one in Connecticut.
Yeah, it's the same show though. It's the
Oh,
same
okay,
show.
okay. You're
Yeah, it's the same
syndicated.
show. It laughably, yes. I want to get more syndicated, but
Regionally syndicated.
exactly. I do it for free. I've been doing it for fun for, since before we did any of these acquisitions and got deep into the industry. And a little slightly nepotism. A good friend of mine runs Connoisseur Media, and I have a super low voice, and I've been doing all these playlists for years, and he kept, bugging me to do a show. And I finally was like, all right, let me see if I can do it. And now we've done almost 7 years in. So around 300, every single, I do it every week, haven't missed a week, 300 distinct episodes. And every week I do a different playlist around rock and roll. Typically it's 1980 to now rock and roll, but I can dabble a little bit. It's sort of it's a specialty show, so I have a little flexibility. But yeah, every week I do a different theme. This week I'm doing an acoustic theme. I'm doing a two-part acoustic theme. I'm not doing any of the MTV Unplugged. I've already done an Unplugged show, but this is sort of the artists doing their own version of their songs acoustically. Last week I did a show. I did a show that it was every single song has a big transition, either in genre, tone, tempo, etc. in the middle of the song. Think like "Proud Mary" by Tina Turner, which in the middle of the song goes from this slow burn to kind of a raucous ending, things like that. Um, yeah, like it's super fun. I'm always open to new themes if anyone has them. But we get pretty creative on the show. And it's an hour-long show, just playing, 12 to 15 songs, and every couple of songs I say a little something, and that's that. But it's super fun and just a great passion and hobby of mine.
That's great. I didn't realize there was a correlation between the playlist and your radio shows.
Oh, yeah,
You know,
I try to sneak I try to sneak some of my shows. Oh yeah, I use Spotify to make all the playlists. So that has all the playlists that I made over the years, and some other playlists that I made. I've done a bunch of weddings, some bar mitzvahs, etc.
that's a lot of playlists. What do you think of the new feature of AI creating automatic playlists with keywords?
That is here to stay. You're looking at, disruption across how we're finding content. So, having our music be pegged into the searches on Chat GPT, on on Anthropic, on Claude, etc. We think that's really important. And the good thing is that in almost every generation, high quality music has taken share over time from the also rans. So we tend to buy high quality catalog that fans care about because those are going to be what gets into the generative AI platforms and gets prompted to play the next thing. Because engagement, these platforms, social media platforms, Spotify, they live on engagement. They want people to engage and stay on the platform as long as humanly possible. And the best engagement, and I'll talk about radio on this, the best engagement is with songs that people like and they already know. So catalog over the past couple of years has been taking share from frontline music, and catalog defined as music over 3 years old has been taking share from frontline music because it's a lot of
Familiar.
content that's coming out. But it doesn't, the new content that comes out doesn't replace the relationship people have with music that they know and love. And if you go to a radio station, they'll tell you that it takes four listens before someone likes a song. And so you need to have the song up in front of someone. And radio, though it's declining, it still is it's still a useful place for that connection to happen. And now more and more we have TikTok in short form, which I do view as a little bit, junk food, for people. Like we want people to listen to a whole song, but our repertoire plays really well in those platforms because music that people love engages better than functional music, it engages better than AI slop. But we have to price accordingly and make sure that we are, at least with that AI slop, we should be taking share of it if it's done on the back of our artists.
Agreed. Circling back to what you were saying, when you were interviewing Adria Petty, and after you were taking some questions, and someone in the audience said something that I had thought of many times. I was wondering if you also agreed that Tom Petty, on top of everything else, was simply the greatest DJ ever, and no one you'd rather listen to talking about music and picking great music. And what do you think of that? And who's your favorite DJ, if not Tom Petty?
Well, I have a good buddy who lives around the corner from me. Ian O'Malley has been on Q104 for 30 something years. And the funny when I was in high school, I listened to Ian, and now he's my friend, which is kind of cool.
I think he was on VH1 for a bit as well.
he was a VJ
Yeah.
for a bit as well, exactly. But I don't. I grew. I like we would listen to Casey Kasem, frankly. Like I listen to those shows on reruns. They're amazing. I think the art of a radio
Why do
DJ.
you think? Why do you think? I mean, he was a great announcer. He never had to do
Yeah,
a second take,
yeah,
but that's the difference for me being an announcer.
yeah,
Ryan Seacrest is a great announcer, and the DJ, there should be someone that you want to hear talking about music that has something interesting to say about the music that he's playing.
yep,
And that's where guys like Steven Van Zandt, and it just seems to me that
yeah.
musicians, that's what Sirius XM has taught us, is maybe nearly all traditional radio DJs are superfluous when you can get artists talking about music in the most engaging and interesting way possible.
Yeah, well, listen, I think it's one of the reasons why radio is declining. One thing is our attention spans are shorter. We have alternatives. I think it's a bit of a lost art, that kind of radio storytelling around DJing. That's why we're in Talkhouse. Our company Talkhouse is a good example. We're looking for other mediums to do that storytelling. We last year we did a podcast about Fela Kuti. That it was one of the top rated podcasts of the year. We partnered with the Obamas and Amazon, and it's an amazing multi-part story around Fela. We did one a couple of years ago with Bjork during the pandemic. She got her childhood best friends to interview her about each of her albums. That kind of long form, I think, is coming back in that medium. Documentaries, podcasts, the short form nature of TikTok is something that I don't think you can really fight, because
It's
the human
junk food,
attention
though. People
span.
aren't going to stop eating junk
Yeah,
food, but it doesn't have to be either or. from
Exactly. There are gradations in the middle that, we're always looking for new methods. We're working on a podcast, sorry, a documentary right now at the Talk House, about REM and about Michael Shannon, the
what a great
actor
phenomenon that is right now.
who, yeah, we're doing the documentary about it. But
I'd
it's,
love to see that. And so would
yeah,
a lot
yeah.
of people getting the posts every day.
I got a great trailer for you to show you. But it's something that it's an incredible story. He started this REM cover band during the pandemic, and Michael Stipe started listening to it, and he showed up at a concert.
I
And
think
then
every single band member, not
and
together, but every band member has performed with Michael Shannon's REM tribute cover band.
they did it together in Athens.
They did.
So in
Wow.
Athens, Georgia, they all got on stage and performed, and that's great. That's the stuff that we're trying. Like, I love that stuff. We have nothing to do with
Yeah.
REM's catalog, by the way. I'm a huge fan. Like that storytelling. That how
Yeah.
cool is that? And then it re-engages the younger audience, and it gets in the news, and it has people go back and listen to some of those old records. Like, REM
And they're
pioneered.
doing album focus, right? First they did Life's a Rich Pageant. Now they're doing document. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, are these audio or video podcasts or both, or does it depend what you're describing now?
It depends. The two, we're doing a lot of like kind of the documentary work as well as the podcast. We tend to start them in audio and then move, to other video formats. The REM thing is just straight to a doc.
I'll be looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Um, who's your favorite like new artist that's coming up right now?
Yeah. We have like the hottest new rock band, Geese, at
Yeah.
Partisan.
Yeah.
And it's funny, the Geese album, in Geese's, they've really blown up and had a big cultural phenomenon. The lead singer, Cameron Winter, put out a solo record like a year and a half ago, kind of snuck it in over Christmas. I like the solo record personally more than the Geese record. It is absolutely fantastic. It's called Heavy Metal is the name of the record. It's really, really, really special, and especially in the context of what he's doing as a frontman of a rock band. Then he has this singer-songwriter Leonard Cohen style album that he put out. And actually, Michael Stipe was there at the show, but I saw Cameron perform at Carnegie Hall, just him and a piano. One of the only, under 25 non-classical musicians to have a solo show at Carnegie Hall in its history. It was unbelievable. So I think he's a superstar from a performance perspective, but also from a songwriting perspective.
And he's not even
That's my favorite.
25 years old yet. And the whole
Yeah.
band doesn't sound like really anything that's come before. A little Velvets, a little Talking Heads, maybe, a little Radiohead in the mix, but really they don't sound like anyone else. And that doesn't happen so often where you
Just
hear a band and they don't sound like
yeah.
anyone.
Our team at Partisan, they are the best in the world at finding distinct artist voice. That's what it is. How do you find something that stands out in a extremely crowded, world filled with a cacophony of content? But I'm a big believer that you I don't want to listen to AI. Like the best song in the world could have been created with AI, but if there's no story behind it, then it's not going to connect to people. I think what Daft Punk, I would say Daft Punk and Gorillaz is that AI. It's not AI to produce the music, but they built a story and a brand around high quality music they released. That's a great thing. I think we will see AI artists do that. It has to be done though in the context of making sure that we're attributing things the right way, but there are going to be new artists that are using AI. That's fine. It's like the synthesizer 50, 40 something years ago. That
Or
was
drum machines,
yeah,
40 years
in a way
ago.
it's like
First they were, yeah.
yeah, it's a tool. It's a creative tool. But I don't think it takes away from people having a distinct voice and getting that out there. All the stuff that's in the middle, it's not gonna make its way into the, into society and have an impact. That's our bet.
All right. Perfect. It is 3 o'clock. We've been talking for a full 60 minutes. It's flown by fast. I enjoyed every minute of it. Hope everybody else did as well. And I think this should be up on YouTube within 24 hours or so if anyone missed it. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Tom.
Hang
Thanks,
on a
David.
minute.
Thanks,
I
Tom.
got a couple questions for him before we let him go.
Yeah, bring it on.
Sam, this has been fabulous. I knew it was going to be incredible. So thank you very much for everything you're doing to make the music industry better for everybody, writers, producers, players, label executives, all of that. Thank you. I have to ask you as an investor, what's your favorite single investment that you've made besides Partisan Records? Sounds like that would probably be the first one. Is there another one that stands out to you as like, man, we nailed that one?
Well, I had a funny one during the pandemic, nothing to do with music, but a guy in my town in Connecticut started making bagels in his house. And I thought they were so good, and he had this cool business model. And I basically forced them to take a very small check from me and make it a business. But Pop-Up Bagels has been an absolute pleasure to be a part of over the past couple of years. Guy Adam Goldberg is an amazing entrepreneur, and that's been super, super fun. And it's been a good investment, but also, it hasn't been great to my waistline. But we have a lot of bagels. That's been a really fun one.
We have one of those in Nashville now, so thank you for that
They
too.
did open in Nashville recently. Exactly.
Now, the opposite. Tell us about a deal that you passed on that you regret. Like, gosh, why'd I let that one get away?
Well, I'd say I got a lot of crap from my dad when our really extremely dear friend Golnar Khosrowshahi bought the Miles Davis catalog.
Yeah.
Miles, my youngest son is named Miles. My middle son's name is Dylan, if you can tell kind of the music that I grew up with. But I got a lot of crap for not doing the Miles Davis deal. But it is in such great hands, it doesn't bother me in the least.
No kidding. Well, listen, I promised the audience they'd leave here smarter and more inspired than they arrived. I guarantee you we delivered on that. David, thank you for bringing Sam. This has been incredible. And I hope to see everybody on here soon at either a music conference or a festival this year. Geese is at Bonnaroo. Come on down, my favorite festival. And be safe and be nice to everybody. See you, folks.